Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, can you give me just 2 seconds? I just got off the phone with dealing with something. I just have to run to the ladies' room real quick. I really am sorry. I'll be right back.
Yep. Give folks just a couple more minutes to arrive and all that good stuff. And
Okay. Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. Okay. How are we doing, Jen?
good, we are at quorum or over quorum or,
Great.
full
Love it.
quorum goodness.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. I hope everybody had a good last month. It is 1:03. I'll call this meeting to order. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda? No? Okay. Did everyone have the opportunity to review the minutes from our August 14th meeting? And if you have, I will entertain a motion to approve or make any. Loretta, thank you. Do I have a second? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, thank you, Jody. Second. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Minutes have been approved. Okay, so update on training and our material. Jen, do you want to take the lead on this?
Well, I can certainly start it out. This morning, Sheriff Harlow and I met with Ian Sullivan, who is if you're not aware, is the state's attorney for Rutland County. He and one of his deputies, Darren Rowley, who is a superstar deputy prosecutor of intimate partner violence crimes, have agreed to provide us with a section on, from a prosecutorial perspective, why it is so very important to get dominant aggressor determination correct and what happens to the case when you don't. So I think that's going to be exciting. And they are ready to get going on that. So that's good stuff. I have got a whole slew of videos from the Petito family to go through, and we'll be utilizing those as part of the training, snippets from them to illustrate the dominant aggressor, things that we are trying to make sure that folks are getting from this. So that's where I am currently at the moment. Jen, do you have other things to add?
No, I think that was perfect. Thank you, for doing
Mhm.
that. Yeah, like
Yeah.
Jen mentioned, we also met with Jim Schmidt, and he was super appreciative and very excited that we were moving forward with this and going to be using some of the material to live and learn from. So I think that that's going to be great. And I was very impressed with Ian and Darren, so I'm excited to get those, and hopefully we'll have those. I think we'll have those slides sooner than later that we'll be able to review and go over, but I'm confident that that will be good information.
Mhm. Yep.
So did anybody have any questions on that?
Can I just ask a quick question about how um, Jen, this Furpo, this might be more of a question for you. Are you thinking of the kind of video clips being part of that presentation, like those things kind of merging, or are you thinking about like two different sections?
So I'm thinking that some of the video from the Petito Foundation may be utilized as an example, and saying, hey, this is something you should be looking for, and here's an example of it. I'm also toying with the idea of using it as, even though we know the outcome, stopping it at different, using a larger chunk and stopping it at different points, and then asking the audience, what would you do at this point? And then let's see what the officer did, and then discuss, how that may have affected further decision making and ultimately the outcome.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I'm I think that's a great idea. And I'm just reflecting on probably the most powerful training I went to, which was an IACP training with law enforcement, where they walked through a hypothetical sexual assault case, like from start to finish. And, um, it was the same sort of thing where they showed different elements of the case and asked law enforcement officers how they would respond to those various elements. And they got to the end of the case, and the prosecutor who was presenting revealed that it was the Kobe Bryant case that she had been walking through, but everything had been anonymized.
Uh-huh.
And it like really kind of blew people's minds. And I always think that making something really grounded in an actual situation, sometimes a higher profile case that folks have some familiarity with, can be really engaging and helpful. So I appreciate the approach.
We actually do something very similar to that in the Basic Academy sexual violence section. Corporal Peatman actually have made a presentation out of a case that she's familiar with, and she popped right back. And it's like that choose your own adventure. She presents part of the case, and then what would you guys do? And Nicole, I'll let you speak to that a little bit.
Sorry, I'm just trying to finish up my lunch at the same time. I've been running around all day. Yeah, it's really just like it's a case that I worked, that I learned, I messed up on along the way. I learned along the way. It was just a great teaching point. So I kind of just go through and like we work the case together with the new officers, and kind of like, what would you guys do from here? What are you thinking as this with this information, and what should we be thinking of trying to do like later on, like in the future of this investigation? Like, we got this bit of information, what are we going to do with it next, kind of deal.
Heather or Carolyn? Heather and Carolyn?
Right. Nicole, that sounds very cool and like a really good training tool. I just had a comment, and I know you've already done the minutes, but I did not see in the minutes that that last time, I think you'll remember that I was really high on that Maryland prosecutor's half-hour video that she did. And I just wanted to make sure that that gets shared with Ian and I can't think of her name right now, but Raleigh.
Yep.
Darren. Okay. I thought it was really quite good. And one of the things I liked about it was she does do an example in there. And I loved that it was a very typical case. It wasn't a major case. It was a typical case that an officer would encounter, and she walked through those steps just in the way that Nicole was describing. So, that'll be up to Ian and and his parent partner to decide if they want to use an example like that, in addition to using the case that we are providing them with. But anyway, I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that again. And the second thing I wanted to mention was just looking through those slides and seeing how it was broken down. And I'm sure Ian will have lots to say about this, but I was a little bit concerned about having dual arrest be kind of an option in those slides. Maybe that's talked about in a different way, but in my experience, dual arrest is basically unprosecutable. So having officers saying like both people use equal amounts of force, then that should result in a dual arrest. I think we want a step in there where they consult with someone, so maybe someone in the state's attorney's office, about whether to do an arrest at all, maybe send it over as a review case. Because if you charge both parties, the only situation where you can proceed with that would be if you have another witness or some other way to prove it. And so, just with my prosecutor hat on, and I will defer to Kim, she may have more information to add on that, but I was a little bit concerned to have officers thinking like, okay, if I think they all used equal force, then I should do a dual arrest.
That's the downside to me just sharing the slides. That you don't have the benefit of the talk that goes with it, because the instructor notes are pretty minimal. They're more like memory jogs for me. So what happens when we get to the end where that dual arrest pops up? Then we talk about, if you're unable to do it, and only then you're going to be like Carolyn said, seeking some maybe asking some outside support, some outside minds to look at it, keeping in mind that you don't have to charge like right that second. You could make a decision and consult and charge later. And that if you find that you're doing this, like if you find that you're making dual arrests with any kind of frequency, this is a time when you should be looking at your process. Like, how are you doing this investigation? Are you asking enough questions? Because if you're making more than very, 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 very occasionally to the point of never making a dual arrest, then you're probably not digging deep enough. So we have some significant conversation in class around that.
That's great. Thanks for that clarification.
I wonder if it would be helpful to put something in the slide about consulting with the state's attorney. I mean, I don't know enough about, so, you all know this, about whether that's something law enforcement just know, and it is odd to put it in there at a certain point, but just curious about that.
I'll certainly keep that in mind. We are, as I'm sure folks are aware, in the whole process of our entire curriculum being revamped. So certainly something at the very least I'll bring up with IADList when we get to this section. And then we've had some conversation, myself, Director Brickell, Director Ryan, around the recorded version that we'll be utilizing once we've done as many in person as we can. And we're talking about, does Andrew work for PEG TV, or is he just on the board?
He's on the board.
So he's a really talented videographer that's helped out with our fair and impartial training. And we are exploring what it would look like to have him come and perhaps record one of the in-person sessions and make that the recorded version rather than just using voiced over PowerPoint. So that's still kind of in the works. And that we'll get, as we get a little bit closer to having actual live dates, that's when we'll be able to say one way or another how that's happening. And of course, we also have to find out if perhaps, is Andrew going to want $1 million for this service? So we'll find out.
Okay, thank you. and Sarah, you guys are gonna be able to help out with so thank you, I appreciate that. So that's all squared away.
Yep, we'll be able to help on the legislative update. I've pulled my colleague Charlie Glisserman into that. And so essentially, as soon as we have, we'll start working on, what we feel like the highlights are in that section. And be sure to share that with you, Sheriff Harlow and Jen. And as soon as you have, information on the logistics of dates, et cetera, that'd be very helpful.
Yep. Yeah, one thing I can promise you is that we're probably not going to do any huge, big travel moments during heavy snow season, just because, I don't want anybody to end up in the ditch trying to provide training or go to training for that matter. So, Savannah, are you still, I know you just got back from a delightful sabbatical or whatever it is that you all call it. It sounds something fancier when you say it, but
longevity leave.
I love that. Love that. Are you still willing to do some advocacy items?
Yeah.
Did you have any ideas like what you'd like to concentrate on or?
Yeah, so full disclosure, this is the first week that I've actually been back into the office without putting out fires. So I haven't had a chance to look at the PowerPoint yet to see what I want to fill in on the advocacy point of view. But it is on my list to check out. So I'm excited to be back and to be able to jump into this project with all of you. But yeah, last week was crazy. I feel like everybody just waited until I got back. So yeah, I apologize.
Oh no. Yeah, definitely put out the fires first.
But I'll send you an email with notes.
Sounds great.
Thank you. So Sheriff Anderson is going to be coming in a little bit, maybe hopefully around 1:30 or a little bit after to help us out because we were talking about looking at Valcor and trying to gather some data on what the state is looking at. But I'm going to let him do that so that he can explain it and everyone will understand. Did you have any updates, Kim? I know you've been busy, but did you have anything interesting? I know you were going to be reviewing some cases to see if there was any IVP attached to the homicides that we currently have?
So I can't remember. I should have looked at my note where I was at our last meeting. I have gone through all of 2025. So I have done that. And then I had a fortunate meeting with the crime research group. And Robin is going to pull the numbers from 2020 to 2024. They don't have the 2025. So she's supposed to get that to me next week. And just breaking down the relationship between victim and defendant from there. And then also the other part, I'm looking at guns and drugs and whatnot. But so at our next meeting, I'll be able to show at least, it won't be perfect apples to apples, but it'll be at least a trend that I think might be interesting for us just to see. So far for 2025, I can't remember if I said this at our last meeting, of the, there's 20, there were 20 cases. There's now at least 2 or 3 more since I pulled these numbers. 3 would fall under domestic violence. And of those 3, only 1 was intimate partner violence. There's some, but I'm gonna be interested to compare that to 2024 and earlier. And I'll send that out to you all.
Thank you. Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see that. I really appreciate you doing that. Okay. Carolyn, did you have any updates? Probably not because everybody's been so busy.
Yes, I did. When I saw that you had that on the agenda, I reached out to Brett, fully expecting that he would say they didn't have the capacity. But guess what? He has 2 law students that he's putting on this project, and he's hopeful that they may be able to put together something by November.
Oh, great. Awesome. So I'll keep in touch with you offline, Carolyn, and we can just keep communication, and maybe if they're ready or something, maybe they can present something or do a little update in November, and then we can move forward from that. Does that sound good? Okay.
Yes, I offered to meet with the 2 law students if they wanted to, just to kind of have an introductory meeting to chat, see what they had in mind, but Brett's going to be supervising it. And of course, Jill Martin Diaz is still copied on all those emails too. And she also echoed that, she was very supportive of this idea. So hopefully we will be able to pull together something by November. We'll see.
Awesome. Thank you. Oh Christ, that went fast. Holy cow, look at us going along. Well, hopefully Mark will sign on soon. I'm not sure. So I think it'll be interesting for us to look at the data that we have in Vermont. And he's just going to be giving us kind of a general outlook so that we can get more defined of. And I'm going to be curious to see of what we what we are looking at as far as how other agencies are documenting these things, if there's different call information, like whether it's a domestic violence or it's a family disturbance or a citizen's dispute, and hopefully we can tease out some information from that and see what's going on throughout the state, who's being arrested, how many females, all that kind of stuff, if any, and go from there. Does anybody have anything else or any questions or anything concerns while we're waiting? No?
Chris, I can
Okay.
see your hand
It
up.
looks like Chris has an actual
Oh, I'm
hand
sorry.
up.
Go ahead, Director. I
Sorry,
have 2 screens, so.
I'm late to the game as usual and didn't even get a chance. I just wanted to point out because I heard our Jen bring up the conversation about IATLAS and the curriculum review and the process that we're going through. And one of the things that I'll just make this as an observation. This is the first I'm seeing the PowerPoint done right now, and that they're really very critical, and I don't say critical in a bad way, but critical about making sure that any graphics or images that we use are appropriate and based, not set for humor or to somebody else's taste. So any images or any type of graphics that are included in the PowerPoint should be relevant just to the topic and not meant to be humorous or lighthearted or anything along those lines. So I'm throwing that out there just because while this doesn't have to meet IATLAS criteria, we're certainly trying to follow that model of everything that we have is competency based. It's, we're able to track and where throughout the PowerPoints that we're now using for training, we're hitting all the relevant markers. So there may be some edits that I might ask for to that, whoever took the time to create that. So I apologize for just seeing that now.
Yeah, I inherited much of these PowerPoints, so.
Nothing wrong with updating and reviewing.
I appreciate that.
It's what happens when you come late in the game and you just start looking at things right off the bat. Don't have a chance to take them in yet.
So Mark should be signing out any minute. And Jen, he's gonna possibly gonna be
Looks like
wanting to
he's
share
here.
screen.
Okay.
Oh, I think with Teams he can just share his screen.
Just share it, doesn't need, okay.
I think so.
Hi, Katie, thanks for joining
Welcome.
us. Hi, Mark.
Good afternoon.
Thank you very much for joining us. We can do quick introductions if you'd like. This is Sheriff Mark Anderson. He has a lot of hats and a lot of roles, but he's here to help us out with the ValCore. If everybody wants to just do a quick introduction so he knows where everybody is and who the audience he's talking to, that'd be great. Carolyn, Heather, you want to start?
Sure. I was just looking for how to rename us, but we are together today for another meeting that's coming up. I'm Heather Holter, and I co-direct the Vermont Council on Domestic Violence.
Hi, Mark. I'm Carolyn. I'm hoping to get your phone number. I have something I want to talk to you about.
We're happy to be here again.
Savannah?
Hi, I'm Savannah Williams. I'm the Operations Director for Umbrella North, serving Orleans and Northern Essex County, so the local DVSV advocacy program.
Jody?
Jody Bacon from the Compensation Program with the Vermont Center for Crime Victim Services.
Nicole?
Hi, I'm Nicole Peatman. I work for the Essex Police Department assigned to the Chittenden Unit for Special Investigations.
I don't think there needs to be an introduction for Jen, Sarah, the director, or Kim. I'm not.
Hi,
I
Mark.
think- You know, Lisa? Do you know Loretta?
I think I know everyone else.
Oh,
So
Katie.
hello.
Do you know Katie? No.
If you do, I don't know you. I'm
Bear
Katie.
with
I'm
me a minute,
the.
I'm looking through the list.
Oh,
There
okay.
you are. Hi, Katie.
Hello. I am the Human Trafficking Case Manager Coordinator located out of South Burlington PD. I provide direct service and consultation throughout the state, and I also work with communities to create multidisciplinary teams and chair a training and outreach committee on trafficking for the state. Happy to be here.
Thank you,
I
everybody.
guess I'll introduce myself. I'm Mark Anderson. I'm the Sheriff of Windham County. And I guess I'll take the self-proclaimed title of Chief Nerd of Valcor data. So I'm the guy to talk to when you want to do data things, not because I'm anyone special, but because I get it. So I'm here to help. As I understand, I'm here to help you get the things that you want and to navigate the process to get the things that you want out of Valcor. And I'll explain as best as I can reasons why certain things might not be available, but generally it's around protecting law enforcement investigations and the sensitivity of prosecuting cases and ensuring that the criminal justice system works the way it's supposed to, while the statistics, the data, the research programs run the way they should work without jeopardizing either. So that's probably the easiest nutshell I can wrap that all up in. Where do you want me to start, Jen?
Sorry, I had myself on mute. So I think and correct me if I'm wrong with anybody, but my intention was to try to figure out in Vermont, like if we are having dual arrests, what that looks like and what calls for service. Like, is it domestic disturbances? Is it domestic assault? Is it family violence, citizens dispute, family disturbance, that kind of thing? Just trying to gather as much information as we can into interpersonal violence and really look at and see what we're doing as a state as we move forward with this training that we have to see what, if anything, we're missing, what we can focus on, and if there is a lot of dual arrests occurring, or maybe there isn't, but we're just trying to figure that out, especially if we're going to be focusing on dominant aggressor and looking to see, like, are females being arrested in these situations opposed to if they're, depending on what kind of relationship they're in, and seeing how we're doing at this already.
Okay. So from a data perspective, well, I guess let me back up. How many people do not know what Valcor is? Seeing no one, I'm going to skip over that explanation and just say it has a lot of data points. Each agency that contributes to Valcor, which is almost every single agency, law enforcement agency in the state of Vermont, sans about between 3 and 5 in Windsor County, and that's just because they use a different system. And generally speaking, constables. Every agency is generally a contributing agency. With that, there are probably over 100 different data points that are captured, but because every agency is its own agency, they have their own policies on how they do things, how they capture things. It's their data. So Valcor is kind of this interesting lake of information, and the quality of information is going to be dependent on the agencies. What's nice with it, though, is that it's a framework of how to capture information, and so generally, as best as we can rely on the data to be accurate, we should be able to have an apples to apples comparison in a lot of ways when it comes to data. So if an officer is dispatched to a call regarding domestic violence in some way, shape, or form, whether that is a verbal incident, that is various forms of domestic violence that do not include an assault, a physical assault, or another crime, or it is a call that also includes an arrest for whatever crimes occurred, we should be able to pull data from all of those things. The data that is in Valcor is, again, owned by the agencies, but there is a governing body known as the Valcor Governance Board, which ultimately serves as an entity to help the system function, develop policies around it, but also is granted limited authority to release data on the agency's behalf with some specific guardrails. Where the governance board is charged with releasing information is generally around information we call, through our own definition, general data. And so those are things that you could generally say are anonymized. They are not necessarily incident specific. There's nothing you could correlate in that information to the investigation that occurred last night at 7 p.m. at your neighbor's house. The flip side being we have no authority to release specific data. And so there are certain things, even if they are of no material value, we're not allowed to release it if it does identify the incident that occurred at 7 at night at your neighbor's house. So that is kind of the overview, a broad, brief overview of the structure that we're kind of talking about and what we can do and can't do. If we wanted to access data that would fall under that specific data definition, it would have to be with individual permission from each agency. So this is the way that we were able to navigate getting information to researchers without asking 70 different people for permission or filing public records requests to 70 different agencies, if not more. I've talked a lot so far. Any questions before we dive into data? Hearing crickets? Cool. So I'm going to share one of but many example reports of things that we can do. And these are all configurable, which makes it really fun. Teams wants to do something. Oh boy. All right, so this is one example of a basic export of information that we pulled from Valcor. Again, you will not find anything that really lays out who it was, where it was, anything like that. But what we can find, kind of to Jen's initial statement around where do we have dominant aggressors, where do we have multiple arrests based on, in this case, it's going to be titled gender, but it's actually reflecting biological sex. Ages, we have what charges were made versus how did the agency codify it as a call type. And so if we were dispatched to a noise disturbance and an arrest was made for domestic assault, we could have been dispatched to a domestic assault and arrested someone for simple assault because they did not meet the statutory definition of family dating, the list. So this is just one example of data we pulled for a period of time. I don't remember because it was just an example. What we're really looking to do is have the governance board. We give the governance board a list of columns that we would want to have in a report. So in this case, I just made it up with call type. Common call type is how my agency in Windham County might be able to compare its call types to the Orleans County Sheriff's Office, where Jen's deputies might be responding to a domestic assault misdemeanor. again, I'm just making this up, but a domestic assault misdemeanor, whereas my agency is responding to a domestic violence call. We can have our own different call types, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just to say they're not apples to apples when we talk about this column call type. Common call type is where we then have apples to apples. And so we could say, okay, this is an assault. You'll see this code next to it. This is how the federal government codes these things as we report them out nationwide as part of the National Incident-Based Reporting System. So there are some standards to how this framework works, but that's what some of those things mean. These are the charges that were filed in any one of these given cases. And then this, or I should say, these are the charges that were observed. And then these were the arrests that were made. And so an example could be, I'm aware that a domestic assault occurred, but we don't know where the person is. They fled to another state's jurisdiction. We did not make an arrest. And in a case like that, we could have the violation be populated, but the arrest would be blank. And that doesn't mean that the crime didn't occur. It might mean that we are filing for an arrest warrant, and this data is not going to reflect an arrest because one has not been made. So we can see different milestones or waypoints within the law enforcement processing to do that. In the case of this data set, I searched for cases where we had all of the information. So this is where a crime occurred and an arrest was made for the crime. We are not getting the data of where a crime occurred, but no arrest was made. We're not getting the data where maybe no crime was observed or there was no evidence of a crime. But this is, again, just one data set. Again, the key is what we have to ask the governance board for permission, or the various different agencies for permission, are what's in these columns. What we then search for criteria is, as long as it doesn't come into that specific data definition, then we can basically release that information without having to request it from each agency. And so to that end, we could say, hey, maybe we want to know the race of a person. That is another field that we capture. And so we could ask the race of the arrestee. Why do we want to know that? I don't know. So this is kind of where I'm here to try to help you with what data fields do you want, what information will be helpful, but with probably some qualified knowledge on how to do the things that Jen prefaced this with. Any thoughts before we start doing some magic?
I do have one question, Mark. Oh, I'm sorry. You go ahead, Lisa.
No, I was just gonna say, I appreciate the ability for the race and gender, because I think it can give us a lot of information, and being able to analyze that and what's happening across the state.
Yeah, I used a pre-built report to generate what you see on the screen right now. So that was just because at some point somebody wanted to know probably the charges and the age and, well, mislabeled the biological sex of the people who were arrested, and that might have been tied to what we give to courts. So it's easy for us to configure templates, and we could actually create a template that would then be able to report on this regularly. And so you could actually have like a monthly snapshot where it just gets sent out once the information release has been approved. And that's the same thing we do for anyone familiar with it for the law enforcement's traffic stop race data reporting, which is a data set all law enforcement reports to the council every year. But that's an annual submission as opposed to what could be a weekly or a daily or a monthly submission.
This is so helpful. I had a question about how, as you were saying, that if an arrest is not made, it would be blank. Is there the possibility, I'm just diving in here, just curious, is it possible to know if an arrest was not made, why an arrest was not made?
Without the report, no. Generally speaking, you won't be able to get that, because that's where we're going to start getting into the specificity of that one incident, and the qualitative information is where it becomes harder for us to say as a automated release of information. we can just say it's safe to release this information. That's why it becomes the agency making discretion. We don't know that a court order wasn't filed that seals that record. We don't know. And to release that information could be violating that, which could then put the law enforcement agency or the officer in violation of the law with civil or criminal penalties. So that's
Got
the
it.
hard part.
Right. Great, thank you.
Yeah. Unfortunately, well, actually, maybe I wrote myself notes when I sent all of these to Jen. Just refreshing my memory. So this is an example of a demographics arrestee report. I searched for, so this is an example where we used agency consent. And so this is going to be data sets from Orleans County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Harlow, as well as my agency. We only are reporting out where an arrest was made between the dates of January 2024 and June of 2025. So we are seeing everything. This does not drill into domestic assaults, but I think that's important to call out because we might have a call type where we have, say, someone driving with a license suspended who then has something other than driving with a license suspended as the charge. And so we know about, in my experience, we call them rolling domestics, a motor vehicle stop that occurs where a domestic assault is identified on the motor vehicle stop. It's not common, but it happens. And so there could be a value to a report such as this, where we say what other crimes are occurring and where are we finding them based on an investigation that had nothing to do with domestic violence as we would traditionally believe that they're going to be accessed. So generally speaking, I think we're going to find what we're looking for. Searching for call types or whatever, but I think that there could be a valuable data source to things that people may be interested in. The next one I'm going to bring up is a very similar report, but this is one, as I was explaining, we might have examples where a crime was identified, but an arrest was not made. And so that's why we don't have the gender or the age columns populated, is because no arrest was made, which can be a result of a few different things. I'm not able to answer what those few different things are here, even though some of this might be my data, simply because there's nothing here that can tell me which case this is. One of the most common child pornography cases, just highlighting this one that I'm on, that we deal with is actually teenagers sharing images of themselves, which the formal crime is possession or manufacturing of child pornography. But generally, we have a pre-charge program that deals specifically with teenagers doing what is age appropriate but completely inappropriate behavior. And this is just how our systems respond to capturing what that information is, because there are no laws to deal with teenagers with such a behavior. But that might also be something where we want to start talking about, are there dynamics around domestic or sexual violence occurring as it pertains to images of a person under the age of 18. So there could actually be information that we could pull out from things like that. The other, all of these columns are the same as you've seen already. What's the other one? And that's going to be exactly the same as what you saw before. So the key in this is, or the thing I want to point out is, while we would be identifying to the governance board what these columns are, I can also tweak it to represent how the columns are then populated. So we could say we want to know the criteria being, who are the agencies, and the dates. That's one example of criteria. We could say we want to know who are the agencies, what are the dates, and we want to know the common call types. And that's another example that we use to pull data. And then the third one, we wanted to know all the agencies and the dates, but then we wanted to exclude the ones where an arrest was not made. So like it's almost a two-stage process for us to be able to get you what you want and deal with that. So let's see, this is Rev 1. This report searched specifically for cases where there was a family offense that was nonviolent, an assault, a court order, a sex offense. So that's why you're not seeing motor vehicle crashes primarily, but it's possible that we could have a motor vehicle crash come up in one of these. We're also not saying it has to have an arrest. Are there thoughts on what people would like to see in a report before I say, how do we come up with a report for, I forget the list that Jen already has told me 3 times now. I don't have my notes in front of me. I apologize.
So we're really want to look up any kind of interpersonal violence or domestic situations, and we're looking to see who, if anyone is being arrested, and if there's dual arrests being made.
Interpersonal, well, that's not good spelling, but whatever. Interpersonal violence, dual arrests, and what else?
Gender.
I'm going to say sex, because while it is identified in
Right, it
Valcor
can
as
still be,
gender, it's
yep.
often biological sex, because that's what we
Yes.
report to the FBI.
Yes. Mhm.
All right, so we're gonna build a report on the fly while we're doing this. Call type, common call type. We can define interpersonal violence based on common call types. We're gonna want to know who's arrested. So we'll do the arrest, sex. You said race is valuable. Is ethnicity valuable?
Yes.
The arrestee's age at the time of the incident.
I would say yes.
We'll go with the arrest charge. We'll go with crimes observed. I assume gang affiliations is not important. There are some data points that I personally am just not familiar with. They are part of the NIBRS data set that we reported out. So there's things like, was there a bias? And so bias is defined by the FBI NIBRS people to include races, religions, sexual orientations, disabilities. So I assume that there could be value in that on this basis, but understand you'll get the full list of biases if they're identified, and it's only if we can identify them. It doesn't mean that we identified that someone is, or that there is a bias. And so
Correct.
just an understanding that the flag itself does not necessarily indicate there's no bias. Even if it says no bias, it's just how we have to report it to the FBI. So I'll include bias.
Can I ask a clarification on bias, just to make sure I'm
Sure.
understanding it? Is it that the possibility of a bias exists because of these specific quality or characteristics of the person, or is it that somebody says bias happened?
We have to have evidence that we can point to say to the FBI, this was a hate crime directed at this protected class or category. So if
Okay.
it does not exist, we are saying there's no bias that exists that we have identified. It doesn't mean it wasn't done with bias. It's just we are not aware of it. We lack the evidence to support that.
Okay, so it's bias between the parties we're talking about, not the officer.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Does hour of the day, day of the week, or month of the year matter to anybody?
Sorry, no.
Whether drugs or alcohol were involved?
Yeah.
I'm taking a wild stab because there can be different things. So we're going to have a few different columns, and some may be valuable or valueless. But we'll throw it out. Victim type and victim injury types. Assume that is probably valuable.
Yep.
And so probably a victim offender relationship would be valuable. If I can pull that one. This is the Domestic Violence Subcommittee. And then how do you see us pulling data? Incident focus or arrest focus?
I would like to try to start out incident focus and see what we get from that. And then if we're not getting what we think, or if we think there's more out there, then maybe we can revert back to does that sound fair?
Yep. I'm going to start this with being the most verbose report. I'm going to only do 100 incidents just to start because we're kind of coming up with the idea as opposed to needing to pull the data set at this moment.
And Mark, just letting you know, not that I want to cut you off, but we have about 5 minutes left for our meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, what type of stuff do you want to know about? I'm going to run the report right now. Do we want to search a date and time for certain call types? Family offenses, assaults, sexual violence.
I mean, I would
I
like,
think,
go ahead.
no, you go ahead, Jen.
No, go ahead, Heather. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, family offenses. I mean, I think one thing, and I think we get this by incident, running incidents, but just to check in, I think one of the things that it would be interesting to be able to see is when there had, even though we don't know why an arrest wasn't made, when an arrest wasn't made, particularly because we're hoping that there are times when law enforcement might be called and perhaps someone was defending themselves, or there was a reason that not making an arrest was the best thing to do in that situation. So but yeah, I would think family offenses or something, whatever seems like a really broad way to get at primarily intimate partner.
Yeah, so based on what we just created, or came up with as a list, I just created this report. So here's call type. Whether the domestic violence flag was checked, which it's probably fairly common for agencies not to use this anymore in lieu of newer functionality, which is already captured, but some agencies still use this. So in this case, it was used. Common call types, which we had a human trafficking person on here, so I included human trafficking cases as well. They might not be included normally, but we can do that.
I think for this, it's just domestic violence for the purpose
Sure.
of this group.
Yeah, and I'm just wheeling and dealing with information that is going on. It's an emergency. I'll call him back. Ethnicity, if it's captured, the age at the time of the incident, which I'd have to go back and look why this is not populating, but that's probably just I set something dumb. Crime that was observed, arrest that was made, any bias or motivation if it was set, whether an alcohol flag was set, drug flag was set. These are older functionality and they were replaced with this functionality. But here's an example where drugs were true, but they didn't know what the drugs were. So there's reason to output the information for both, even when they might contradict each other. But it brings rise to asking the question. Drug classification, victim type will probably almost always be an individual, but you might see a victim type being a business, something like that. Types of injuries, as well as the victim offender relationship.
Mark, we have a quick question. Sorry.
Yes.
Jody?
Yeah, I just wanted to know if it was sent for review, if it shows up later on, if it was approved for a charge, would it show up as an arrest later on in Velcor?
So this is all based on the law enforcement agency's records. So if the state's attorney were to upcharge or downcharge, that would not be reflected. You'd have to look at their data.
Thank you.
Jody, were you also asking if a case was sent for review and it showed like in our Valcor cases reviewed and then it came back and the state's attorney said, yes, go ahead and charge, would that pop up? Is that?
Yeah, I was just curious, like if it would come up as blank if it was sent for review, and then if it was accepted, if it gets changed in Valcor as an arrest.
I can't answer for every agency, but I would, in my agency, it should be happening where if we sent a case for review, it came back to us with the state attorney saying, yes, there's enough, please go forward with this. Then we should go back in and put like the arrest date, citation date, charged, all that information should go back and should go into that case. And then if a report was run after that, then it would show, correct, Mark?
Yeah, so the two things. One is you'll see I just added a column for prosecution status. If agencies are able to use Valcor to electronically submit to the state's attorney, this will show submitted. Some agencies and some counties are still doing a paper submission, so you won't see it submitted here, even though it was. If a case went for review and was supported by the state's attorney for charges, the agency is going to have to report all of these things. That's how we report out to the FBI as part of the NIBR system. So once the arrest is made by arrest warrant, by citation, by physical custody, whatever that however that plays out, arrest charge would populate. There's also, I'm going to add another one. Which this will be an agency specific field, but it's going to be the incident disposition where agencies are able to say what happened. And so here's a case where no arrest was made. Why? Well, we identified a crime, but we might not have identified who committed the crime. There was a fight. We have evidence of a fight. We don't know who the people were. It's still active. We don't know. Or it's inactive because we don't think we will ever find out who was in the fight. Versus times where that field just wasn't populated. Don't have a reason other than the officer just did not put the information in the system. Here's a case where we have an active case. It was submitted to the state's attorney's office, but at the same time, we don't know or it hasn't been charged. And so we'd have to go look at that incident to fully understand why. But my guess is that it was submitted to the state's attorney's office for review, and we have not identified a charge as of the moment. Or I should say a person to arrest as of the moment, for whatever reason. So with this, we can layer up, we might be able to add a field for anonymized numbers. I'd have to check if that exists. Where we could essentially make each incident number or each incident have its own anonymized ID number so that you could actually say, which of these were from the same case? Is it fair to say all of these are from the same case? I can't answer that right now, but it might be. And so then we could start to say, okay, we have male, 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 male. Is it the same male? We don't know. Right now you're getting a lot of information, but there's no way to say, are these separate incidents or one and the same? So there are things that we can do to tweak that to answer the question of dual arrests. But that you might, depending on what functionality is available for anonymization, it might require a sympathetic person to run the reports for you and do the anonymization of data before it's publicly released. Which is not hard to do. It would be a step that someone would need to do. I've extended the 5 minutes into 7 minutes, so I want to be mindful of your time. I'm happy to come back, but I'm also happy to help shepherd this report or reports such as this through the governance board if that was the data set you wanted to pull.
How is everybody feeling that's still on about this data set? Do you think that this is enough for us to move forward with the information that we're looking for?
I think is a real good start.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So I can work with you, Mark, offline to get this report out. I can bring it out to the subcommittee in between our meetings. And if we're all feeling like we need a little bit more, then maybe I can come back with you and work on that information with the governance board. And then maybe if we need to get more information in the next couple months, then we have that.
Great.
Does that sound okay?
That works for me.
Okay.
And I'll see if we can get some functionality added to Valcor for the anonymized ID. That's been requested before. It might exist for tickets. I'm not sure if it was ever ported over to incidents. Just not seeing it as I scroll quickly. So a pleasure to meet everyone. Thanks for listening to me babble.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, thanks for
Thank
your
you
time,
very
Sheriff.
much. I really appreciate you coming and doing this, and I'll be in touch soon.
Great.
Okay. I guess everybody's jumping off. So can I get a quick motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Chief.
I'll
Second. Thank you, Jody. All right. Thank you again, everybody. And we'll be in touch as information comes in. I'll send it out to everybody. Thank you.
Thanks. Everybody have a great week.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Bye. I thought we were going to stay on.